Act as if nothing matters. Your life will shift overnight. Wake up. You are dying, not a physical death, but a suffocating erasure of the soul. That crippling exhaustion and feeling of falling behind isn't failure, it's a violent psychological mutiny. Your unconscious is deliberately destroying your false life. Here is what is waiting in the dark: the agony of exhaustion and the prison of the social mask. You are dying. Not a physical death of flesh and bone, but a slow, suffocating erasure of the soul. You feel it, don't you? That colossal gaping void right in the center of your chest. A black hole quietly swallowing every ounce of your joy. You smile, you nod, you flawlessly perform your daily routines, but the moment you are alone behind closed doors, you collapse into a fatigue so profound it feels like your very bones are weeping. You look at your hands and wonder whose life you are actually living, because this script feels profoundly alien. The inner multiverse welcomes you to this sanctuary in the dark. If you have been wandering through this world feeling like a shattered, delayed fragment in a perfectly assembled puzzle, know that you are finally home. Before we journey further into the terrifying but beautiful shadows of your own mind, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support is the vital spark that keeps this fire burning, empowering us to continue unraveling the deepest psychological mysteries together. Now, come sit by this crackling fire with me. Let the deafening noise, the relentless judgments, and the ticking clock of the outside world completely fade away. I know the unique brand of agony you carry. You look around and see your peers comfortably seated on their thrones of early achievements, ascending careers, picturesque families, accumulated wealth. Meanwhile, you stand shivering in the cold, paralyzed at the threshold of adulthood, or perhaps deep into midlife, haunted by the crushing stigma of being a late bloomer. You agonizingly rewind your memories, desperately searching for the exact moment you ruined the trajectory of your existence. But I need you to pause, take a breath, and stop this brutal self-flagellation. The paralyzing emptiness you are experiencing is not a symptom of your incompetence, nor is it a sign of your defeat. In truth, it is the most sacred, urgent alarm bell your psyche could ever ring. You are completely depleted of psychic energy, your most priceless human asset, not because you are weak, but because you have hemorrhaged your entire life force, your libido, to breathe life into a phantom. You have been bleeding out to sustain something that does not truly exist, the social mask, or as Carl Jung called it, the persona. We are currently suffocating in an era tyrannically ruled by the spirit of the times. This invisible dictator demands absolute, superficial perfection. It commands you to possess a flawless resume, a digital existence overflowing with manufactured happiness, and a strictly quantified success rate before you even reach the age of 30. Simply to survive and earn a drop of validation, you were forced to meticulously craft a magnificent persona. You learned to smile warmly when your soul wanted to scream. You faked relentless ambition when all you craved was a moment of silence. You nodded obediently in crowded rooms while your inner self begged to flee into the wilderness. The paradox of our existence is that the more flawless the mask becomes, the more the authentic self beneath it rots away. The supreme danger does not lie in the mere act of wearing a mask. Every civilized society requires a degree of adaptation. The lethal, soul-destroying tragedy occurs when you begin to identify with it. You genuinely start believing that you are nothing more than that job title, that bank balance, that obedient child, or that highly functioning employee. When this catastrophic merging happens, your entire reservoir of psychic energy is violently sucked dry merely to keep the illusion breathing. You spent years painstakingly building a fortress to protect yourself from the harshness of the world, only to realize too late that you have become the most miserable prisoner inside your own walls. Those who bear the heavy, shameful label of being a late bloomer are, in reality, rare personalities. You possess a psychological architecture that is simply too deep, too intricate, and far too complex to be violently hammered into the shallow, cookie-cutter molds dictated by the spirit of the times. This disorientation, this terrifying sensation of falling behind, and this devastating crisis you are tasting right now is actually a moment of divine grace. It is the exact moment your magnificent persona begins to crack. Your unconscious mind is officially going on strike. It vehemently refuses to fund this meaningless, superficial rat race with another drop of your psychic energy. Therefore, this agonizing exhaustion you are enduring is not the end of your story. It is the bloody, unavoidable, and absolutely necessary birth pang of your colossal metamorphosis. The descent into the shadow, where your forgotten life is waiting. The moment your carefully maintained identity begins to fracture, something ancient awakens beneath it. For years, you believed exhaustion was the enemy. You believed your anxiety was a flaw to eliminate, your confusion a defect to repair. Yet beneath every sleepless night and every unbearable feeling of emptiness, another reality has been waiting with astonishing patience. There is a place within the psyche that civilization teaches us never to visit. Carl Jung called it the shadow. It is not a chamber filled with evil. It is a forgotten sanctuary where every abandoned version of yourself has been waiting in silence. Long before adulthood demanded productivity and perfection, you were spontaneous. You possessed anger without shame, curiosity without permission, dreams without practicality, and emotions without apology. But survival gradually demanded another language. Love became conditional. Acceptance acquired invisible rules. Certain emotions earned punishment while others received approval. Piece by piece, you negotiated away your authenticity. Your sensitivity became too much. Your imagination became unrealistic. Your anger became disrespectful. Your independence became selfish. Rather than losing these qualities, you buried them alive. The shadow is nothing more and nothing less than the cemetery of everything you once had to sacrifice in order to belong. This explains why your present exhaustion feels strangely disproportionate to your circumstances. It is not simply the fatigue of working too hard. It is the unbearable cost of maintaining an identity that requires constant suppression. The unconscious eventually reaches its limit. It stops cooperating. The ambitions that once motivated you suddenly lose their flavor. Relationships built upon performance begin to suffocate you. Success itself starts feeling strangely hollow. From the outside, everything appears functional. Inside, something refuses to continue. This is not psychological weakness. It is psychological rebellion. The forgotten parts of your soul are no longer willing to remain imprisoned beneath decades of adaptation. They are knocking from below, not to destroy you, but to retrieve the life you never allowed yourself to live. The journey into the shadow is therefore not an exploration of darkness for its own sake. It is an archaeological excavation. Every painful emotion becomes a clue. Every irrational reaction becomes an unopened letter from the past. Beneath chronic resentment often hides the boundary you never learned to defend. Beneath jealousy often waits an abandoned dream you convinced yourself was impossible. Beneath grief frequently lives an enormous capacity to love that never found a safe home. Even your anger carries intelligence, not because anger is always justified, but because it often points toward the exact place where your soul has been repeatedly violated. Modern culture encourages immediate escape from these experiences. We distract ourselves with endless information, endless productivity, endless stimulation, anything to avoid remaining alone with our own internal landscape. Yet avoidance only strengthens what has been abandoned. Healing begins the moment you stop asking, how do I eliminate these feelings? And instead begin asking, what forgotten part of me is trying to speak through them? This question changes everything. The shadow slowly transforms from an enemy into a guide. Its monsters become guardians. Its chaos reveals hidden order. Its darkness conceals extraordinary vitality. The unlived life has never disappeared. It has simply been waiting beneath the floorboards of your carefully organized existence, conserving its energy until you are finally courageous enough to descend and reclaim it. The descent is frightening because you cannot predict who you will become afterward. But remaining on the surface guarantees something far more tragic, a lifetime spent surviving as someone the world approved of, while never truly meeting yourself. Listening to the spirit of the depths in a deafening world. Plunging headfirst into this frightening abyss of your own shadow, you finally escape the superficial dictates of the world and encounter a much older, infinitely wiser voice waiting in the dark. Jung called this profound, ancient current the spirit of the depths, and it stands in violent, eternal opposition to the spirit of the times. For your entire life, The spirit of the times has been screaming at you. It is the voice of your parents' expectations, the relentless hum of social media algorithms, the panicked ticking of the biological and societal clock, and the rigid, suffocating milestones that declare exactly where you should be by the time you reach 30, 40, or 50. It is a spirit obsessed with utility, speed, and optics. It looks at your life, sees that you have not checked the universal boxes of success, and aggressively labels you a failure. But the spirit of the depths does not care about your resume. It does not look at your bank account. It does not comprehend the concept of a 5-year plan, and it is entirely indifferent to the frantic anxieties of your peers. The spirit of the depths operates on soul time, which is cyclical, mysterious, and terribly slow. It speaks to you not in spreadsheets and performance reviews, but in the language of dreams, sudden synchronicities, and a visceral, pulling ache in the center of your chest. When you feel a sudden wave of nausea walking into a job that looks perfect on paper, that is the spirit of the depths rejecting the lie. When you find yourself staring out of a window for hours, captivated by a strange, quiet longing you cannot name, that is the spirit of the depths calling you back to your true north. The agony of the late bloomer is born precisely from this brutal tug of war. You have been trying to force a soul that belongs to the depths to live by the frantic, shallow schedule of the times. You feel delayed because you are comparing a mighty oak tree to a field of fast-growing weeds. Weeds shoot up overnight, consume the topsoil, and dominate the landscape instantly, while the acorn spends an agonizing amount of time in absolute darkness, doing seemingly nothing. But the acorn is not failing. It is blindly, desperately pushing its roots deeper and deeper into the earth, securing a foundation capable of weathering centuries of storms. You must realize that your delay is not a glitch in your programming. It is a vital biological necessity of your specific psychological makeup. You could not bloom earlier because the environment was entirely wrong for the rare seed you carry. You needed more time to break, more time to question, and more time to suffer, because the meaning you are meant to bring into this world requires a devastatingly deep vessel. To stop feeling like a delayed fragment in a puzzle, you must deliberately unplug from the frantic timeline of the collective. You must cultivate a radical, unapologetic deafness to the spirit of the times. Close your eyes, sink into the quiet, heavy currents of your inner world, and surrender to the rhythm of your own soul. It knows the way, it knows the timing, and it has never, not for a single second, forgotten who you are meant to become. The painful alchemy of becoming who you truly are. When you finally dare to listen to this ancient, untamed voice, instead of the relentless demands of society, the agonizing chaos within you begins to undergo a miraculous alchemy. This is the grueling, sacred process of individuation, the ultimate destination of the human soul. Individuation is not a self-improvement project. It is not about optimizing your habits to become a more productive worker or a more socially palatable citizen. It is a brutal, unyielding fire that burns away everything that is not fundamentally you. It is the conscious, deliberate marriage of your fractured parts, the light of your conscious mind, and the dark, untamed waters of your unconscious. For the late bloomer, individuation feels remarkably like dying, because a death is exactly what is occurring. The false self, the obedient child, the people pleaser, the frantic achiever must be crucified so the authentic self can resurrect. You must stand completely naked in the psychological fire, watching as your old attachments, your outdated defense mechanisms, and the comforting illusions of your youth turn to ash. This is why you feel so profoundly exhausted and entirely lost. You are caught in the liminal space, the terrifying hallway between the person you used to be and the person you are becoming. The old operating system has crashed, but the new one has not yet finished downloading. In this alchemical crucible, you must do the hardest work of your life. You must hold the tension of the opposites. You must accept that you are profoundly gifted, yet completely unproven. You must embrace your deep desire for connection alongside your absolute need for isolation. You must hold your paralyzing fear of failure in one hand and your arrogant, beautiful belief in your own destiny in the other. Society demands that you choose one and repress the other, but alchemy requires both. It is only by holding these agonizing contradictions in your own heart without running away to numb the pain, that a third, transcendent path suddenly appears. This new path is not a compromise, it is a synthesis. As you slowly integrate the exiled shadow and align with the spirit of the depths, your psychic energy finally returns. But it does not return as the frantic, nervous energy of your youth, desperately seeking external validation. It returns as a calm, terrifyingly grounded power. You stop reacting to the world and begin responding from a place of unshakable inner authority. The shame of being behind schedule miraculously evaporates, replaced by a deep, quiet gratitude for the long, dark winter you endured. You realize that your prolonged struggles were never punishments from an angry universe, but the exact pedagogical tools required to forge your unique consciousness. You had to fail at the wrong things so you could be forcefully redirected to the right ones. The alchemy of your suffering has finally transmuted your leaden despair into the gold of absolute self-knowing. You are no longer wearing a mask. You have become the face beneath it, the masterpiece of the late bloomer and the eternal spring. Emerging from the searing crucible of this inner alchemy, you look back at the ashes of your former life and realize that your prolonged winter was never a punishment, but the quiet, sacred incubation of a masterpiece. You are a late bloomer, yes. Bear that title not as a brand of shame, but as a hard-won badge of profound honor. The world is heavily populated by early bloomers who peaked in the morning of their lives, perfectly adapted to the shallow soil of society, only to find themselves completely hollowed out by midlife, wondering why their early trophies suddenly feel like tombstones. They built their houses quickly, on sand. You spent decades in the dark, painstakingly carving your foundation into the solid bedrock of your own soul. It is time to radically redefine what it means to succeed. Your success was never going to look like a perfectly curated timeline, because your destiny was never meant to be ordinary. The world does not need more sleepwalking clones frantically chasing empty status symbols. The world is starving for individuals who have walked through their own personal hell, faced their darkest shadows, and returned with the fire of the depths burning in their eyes. Your late blooming is a gift to a desperate collective, because you took the time to shatter, to question, and to rebuild yourself authentically. The fruit you finally bear will nourish people in ways the early achievers never could. You possess a hard-earned empathy, a ferocious resilience, and a depth of wisdom that can only be acquired by being broken on the wheel of life and surviving it. Do not look at your age and weep for the lost years. Time is a human illusion, an arbitrary measurement that means absolutely nothing to the soul. Your life is not a ticking bomb. It is an eternal spring waiting for the right conditions to emerge. The energy you thought you wasted was merely stored, quietly gathering immense pressure, waiting for this exact moment of realization to burst forth. Everything you have experienced, every agonizing failure, every embarrassing misstep, every long, lonely night spent staring at the ceiling wondering what is wrong with you, was raw material. It was all research. It was the universe carefully preparing the canvas for the magnificent, terrifying beauty of your authentic self. So breathe. Release the crushing weight of the timeline you were never meant to walk. Stand up, brush the ashes of your false persona from your shoulders, and look at the world with the calm, dangerous eyes of someone who can no longer be bought, threatened, or rushed. You have finally arrived. You have survived the brutal winter of the soul, and the soil is finally warm enough for you to break the surface. Let the world marvel at the sudden, breathtaking eruption of your late but eternal blooming. The masterpiece was always inside you. It just needed the courage of your shadows to set it free. Conclusion. The journey of the late bloomer is not a tale of failure, but a profound, necessary descent into the depths of the psyche to retrieve one's unlived life. When the suffocating mask of your persona inevitably cracks, it forces a terrifying but sacred confrontation with your shadow, the exiled, suppressed fragments of your true nature. Instead of viewing this collapse as a breakdown, it must be embraced as a psychological mutiny against a life built on inauthentic foundations. By deafening yourself to the frantic, superficial demands of the spirit of the times and tuning into the ancient, cyclical wisdom of the spirit of the depths, you undergo the grueling alchemy of individuation. This process burns away the false self and integrates your conscious mind with your untamed unconscious, allowing you to hold the agonizing tension of your inner contradictions. Ultimately, your delayed timeline is revealed not as a glitch, but as a vital incubation period. You were painstakingly carving a bedrock foundation while others built quickly on sand. The agonizing winters, the perceived delays, and the crushing doubts were simply the universe preparing you to bloom with unparalleled depth and resilience. You are not behind. You have simply required more time to forge a masterpiece of self-actualization that the world desperately needs. The profound lesson: your timeline is uniquely your own, and psychological wholeness is far more valuable than societal success. True growth cannot be rushed or hacked. The very things you thought were ruining your life, your setbacks, your existential dread, your delays, were actually your soul's defense mechanisms, actively sabotaging an inauthentic path to force you toward your true destiny. Suffering and stagnation are often the messy, fertile soil required for profound transformation. How to apply this to your present life? Unplug from the collective timeline. Stop comparing your journey to the highly curated milestones of others. Deliberately limit your exposure to social media algorithms or environments that trigger anxiety about where you should be by a certain age. Engage with your shadow. When you feel intense, negative emotions like anger, grief, or jealousy, do not suppress them. Sit with them and ask what they are trying to protect or what discarded dreams they are trying to bring back to your attention. Listen to the spirit of the depths. Pay attention to your visceral reactions. If a prestigious opportunity makes you feel sick to your stomach, or a quiet, seemingly foolish hobby brings you immense peace, trust your body. Honor your soul's slow rhythm over society's demand for speed. Hold the tension of opposites. When you feel torn between two extremes, like the desire for ambition and the need for deep rest, do not force a rushed compromise. Sit in the uncomfortable middle until a grounded, authentic path naturally reveals itself. Join the conversation. What is one unconventional dream or hidden passion you have kept locked away in your shadow for far too long? Please leave a comment below to share your perspective. Your story might just be the exact realization someone else needs to read today. If this message resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything and gives us the motivation to keep creating more deep, meaningful content for you.